right, y'all. Now we are going to answer some of your questions that you sent in. And as always, I have not seen them, which I get pretty excited about because I don't even know what you're going to ask. So let's see what we got today. All right, first question. How to manage going back to school, maybe long term, with a young family, kids 3 and 1. Well, let's just talk about it. I'll go ahead and share something with you that I'm not shared. So let me think through this, okay? Am I ready for this? I don't know. We'll just edit it out if not. I'm doing the same thing. So I have felt called to go to seminary, and I started a few weeks ago. And it has been scary, but here's what I have done, and maybe this will be an encouragement to you. I have set expectations for myself that are realistic. So when you say going to school long-term, you didn't necessarily say full-time. So if possible, I would recommend not going full-time unless you're able to dedicate full-time hours to that. I can't. Not with a full-time job, not with 3 kids under age 6 and have any source of sanity. So for me, I'm taking one class at a time. What does that look like for you? When you look at your calendar and you look at your responsibilities, whether that is a job or how much time you spend with your kids, if you take care of your kids during the day with young kids, if you are the primary caretaker during the day, they're not in preschool and so on, then you need to think through what hours will I work on the schoolwork. Another thing you can do is look into how many hours a class takes. So I looked into that. Each class takes about 15 hours. So I have blocked out on my schedule when I will dedicate these 15 hours for one class at a time for me to attend. Now, for you, it might look different if you have more time or have different hours in your schedule, but I would just set very realistic, achievable expectations and block it on your calendar. Because the idea of going back to school seems overwhelming to you. It definitely did to me. The whole idea seemed ludicrous. And by the way, for any of you worried that I'm going to go leave what I'm doing and work at a church and completely change my life plans, I'm not. I just, for some reason, feel God asking me to take classes in seminary to understand the Bible better. I'm curious, so I'm following that prompting. For you, maybe you're pursuing a degree to do something and you've got a certain deadline. Well, your plan needs to reflect that. And so when you put this on paper, on calendar, on purpose, and say, here's how many hours I can do at a time, here's where those hours will go, here's the help I need to align in order to make it happen, takes the overwhelm out of it. You know, it's so interesting, whether it's about school or anything for that matter, things feel overwhelming when we can't see them. It's the unknown, right? Like it haunts you and chases you of like, how will you do it? It feels so big and scary, but you write it down like, oh, well, this is how I do it. It's kind of like running a marathon. The idea of running 13.1 miles for a half marathon or 26.2 miles for a full marathon seems insane. Like that seems so overwhelming. But when you download a training plan off of the internet and you see, wow, all I have to do that first week is 3 miles and I do that already, and then I build to 4 miles and 5 miles, when you can see it on paper, on purpose, you're like, yeah, I can see how this is possible. The same is true with going back to school. The same is true with any goal or major change or focus in your life. You just need to put it on paper and see how it's possible. When you create a plan and you can see how it's possible, you know you can do it and it takes the overwhelm out of it. But congratulations, I'm super excited for you and I hope this helps. All right, next question. Let's see here. Should a person grow a business while they are in a nasty custody court battle? Well, this is a very personal, very intense question. So let me just have a minute, okay? Hang on. Even by the words that you used, nasty custody court battle, here's what I would say. That is taking all of your emotional energy, all of it. I've never been in that situation, but I would imagine that every thought you have is going towards that. I've actually known some people that have gone through that recently, and every ounce of emotional energy goes to that. Every free minute is thinking through all of their paperwork and researching and all of the case that they want to make for themselves, how they want to defend themselves, every minute goes to that. So when you say, should you grow a business, I don't think it's a matter of should you. I think it's a matter of you can't. You can't. Not and keep any ounce of sanity. Now, if you have a business, I don't know all the details of this question. There's a lot of follow-up questions I have. If I were sitting down with you, I would ask them. But if you have a business that, let's say, is well-established and you have an amazing leadership team, an amazing team that you could kind of check out for these months, and your management team or your leadership team can run this thing and maintain it during the season, I'm not saying you need to close the doors. You might have a team that can step in for you while you are absent focusing on this custody battle. But if not, if it's just you, if you're a solopreneur and you're trying to grow something, no. I rarely give you guys absolutes of like definitely yes or definitely no, but I'm gonna do that today. I'm gonna say no. I think it's unwise. I think it sets you up to fail at worst and be miserable at best. And so I would say no. I would say focus on one thing at a time. Give yourself permission to be present and get through this traumatic event that you are going through, which, by the way, any of you going through any type of traumatic event, whether it is a divorce or a health issue or something major that needs your attention with your children, give yourself permission to focus on that thing. Now, if you want to work on your business and dabble in it almost like as an outlet to relieve your stress because it brings you joy and gives you something to think about, fine. But don't let it become something that's added pressure. You got enough pressure. You have maxed out your threshold for pressure from the thing that you're going through. Don't let this business be another source of pressure. You do what you need to do to survive and get by through this season. And when you are through this and you are on the other side, then you can switch your focus and look at that next thing, whether that's a business or a different goal. And I'm so sorry you're going through that. I've known people to go through that. And it's heartbreaking and hell. And it's going to take every ounce of energy that you have. And I'll be praying for you. Whew. Sometimes you guys get me. See, I don't know what these are. And then I just got to, we're on camera. So I just got to, my chest is so tight. Okay, okay. Next question. This one is a great one because this is like an underhanded pitch for me. So it's like I'm excited just as I just skimmed it. How do you prioritize if everything is important? Okay. You can't. You don't. You won't. You don't even make any sense with your question because everything is not important. Like these are opposites. Prioritizing is a hierarchy by importance, and you're saying everything is important. So if you believe and treat everything as important, then you cannot prioritize because you're saying that this is an impossible situation. But I would challenge everything is not important. Everything is not equally important. Patrick Lencioni said, if everything's important, nothing is. So ask yourself, be really, really tough on yourself and honest with yourself and say, if push comes to shove, what makes the cut? What really matters? And I will encourage you, let me dive into a little bit of teaching on prioritization here because I talked about how my book launched yesterday. And so I actually dive into this in the book, but I want to give you guys a quick overview. When it comes to priorities, we tend to think of priorities as this fixed list. God, others, family, self, in that order. Okay, that's great. That's a great Sunday school answer. It's very impractical for real life time management. Those might be your fixed priorities that when push comes to shove, what comes first? When push comes to shove, God is first. Cool. When push comes to shove, family before myself. Okay, great, cool. Most days are not push come to shove. Most days are more fluid, more flexible, and your priorities shift. So in a particular season, you might have priorities like, man, this is a tough season at work. I used the example earlier of an accountant in the spring. An accountant was working all the time in the spring. That's the priority for that season. Doesn't mean they don't love their kids. It just means in that season, kids are not getting as much time as they normally would in that season. Work is first. So work would actually move up in that season. You'll have priorities for a particular week. Let's say in a week in the spring, this accountant goes on vacation. Work moves to the bottom of the list for that week. Playing on the beach with their kids is the priority. They're not checking email. They're not doing anything for that week. On a given day, their child gets stung by a jellyfish. Their child jumps off the diving board, hits their head on the bottom of the pool. They're rushed to the emergency. What's the focus that week? Not being on the beach, going to the emergency room. Child and the health moved up. In a season, in a week, in a day, your priorities will shift and ebb and flow depending on what is most important to you in that day, in that moment, in that season. So don't put pressure on yourself to have this priority list saying, if work is really important to me today, I hate my kids. That's just not true. We're gonna look at prioritization from a more practical standpoint where you look at any given day, or week or season and say, what is most important right now? And that's what my priority list looks like. This is exactly what I do, y'all. So, for example, this summer, I have been very focused on my kids. I've gone to the beach, we go to the playground, we go to the lake. I leave early to pick them up from camp. I leave early on Fridays. I don't work a ton over. I never work in the nights or on the weekends. I'm spending a lot of time with my family because my priority this summer is playing. My kids are first, not just in theory, but also practically on my calendar and just having fun. That's my priority list this summer. But I am right in the middle of switching gears because I'm right in the middle of going into book season. I'm having interview after interview. We've got an event coming up in September I told you guys about. I have speaking events back to back to back to back this fall. I'm gonna be traveling. I'm gonna be on the road. I'm not gonna see my kids near as much this fall. I'm gonna work nights, weekends. I'm gonna really bust it because my focus for this fall is getting this book out in the world to help as many people as possible. Does it mean I don't love my kids? Of course not. It just means that my life, my season, my week, and even every individual day reflects the priorities of what's most important that day. So a very practical thing you can ask yourself, and this is for any of you, by the way, ask yourself, what is right now? What is right now? What is right now? For me, to be with you on this set that sort of looks like my living room, but a whole lot cleaner, and shooting the Christy Wright show for you. That's what's right now. This evening when I go home, what's right now? I'm probably gonna take my kids to the playground. We love doing that after dinner. What's right now? That will help you understand what is most important in any given moment, any given day, any given week, any given season, and give yourself permission to focus on what matters most at that time. I hope that helps you. I hope it takes the pressure off that everything doesn't have to be important. And oh, by the way, you don't have to come up with a priority list that's fixed and concrete forever that you have to live by. It's a little bit more practical than that, and that is one of the things I actually dive into in my book, so I would love to share that with you. You guys are so fun. Thank you for sending in your questions. Thanks for hanging out with me.